Josh, thanks for joining me today as we get into slime or saints, private equity in the roofing space. How you doing, Josh?
Not too bad, not too bad. How about yourself, Adam?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited to have you here. I'm not gonna get into how we met quite yet and our introduction and how we got to know each other. I want to just introduce why we're talking today. Private equity is no secret. If you own a roofing company, you've probably received at least one a week at this point is what we're hearing. I know it might not be a week, but we're getting a ton of inquiry and injection of private equity money buying up roofing companies, and there's resistance to sell. We're curious, are these good companies? Are these bad companies? Am I going to maintain ownership? Am I going to maintain my own right to make decisions and run my business? Am I getting bought out? So the purpose of this interview is to bring in Josh Sparks, who is, in my opinion, one of the leading experts and with a very proven track record in the private equity space, to share your story, Josh, with us and demystify this whole world of private equity. So thank you again for being here. Let's kick things off. And can you just share with me your brief story of who you are, how you got into this roofing business, from wasn't it flipping burgers or something?
Yeah.
A few bucks an hour.
Exactly.
And then to what you're doing today. And then I'll let you introduce you and your group.
Well, thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. I wouldn't say, let me lead off by saying I wouldn't say that I am the expert in all things private equity. I'm a roofer through and through. A little background on myself. I grew up in the Bay Area, Oakland, California, San Jose, Vallejo area. Had kind of a tough childhood. My mom was addicted to heroin. She actually went to prison when I was 10 years old. Didn't really know my dad very well. I ended up moving around a lot as a kid. In fact, I went to 17 different schools. Eventually ended up in Milwaukee, and like you said, flipping burgers at McDonald's. And a friend of mine offered me a job roofing. I had no idea what roofing was all about, but I was making $4 an hour, and he told me I was going to make $9 cash. And I said, there's no way people make $9 an hour. Like, this is insane. I actually secretly thought to myself, I might retire as a millionaire. I'm like, my God, I'll make a lot of money here. But I found out day one exactly why I make $9 an hour roofing. It's incredibly hard work on your body, but any of the roofers listening know that. But I was a young, strapping kid, so it didn't bother me too much. In fact, after a couple of weeks, I actually began to fall in love with it. I love working with my hands. I love getting up early, being outside. So over the course of that summer, I learned everything I possibly could about the roofing business. And being an ambitious young man, I decided I want to start my own company. So I went down to Kinko's and I printed out some flyers. I handed those flyers out in my neighborhood. One single human being found my ad compelling enough, as awful as they were, called me. I sold that roof, and thus began Infinity Exteriors. This is back in 1997. Now, I was young and dumb and had no idea what I was doing. So the next 5 years were quite full of adventure. Started with a 3-month stint in college. Took me that long to realize I didn't want to be an engineer. I ended up joining the Marine Corps as a reservist. I did basic training in weapons company in Camp Pendleton, and then headed back to Milwaukee to serve my reserve duty. And that's where I picked up a job subcontracting as a roofer. And I love my life. Things were going great until 2005, and until I met a very sweet old lady named Betty. I found out, I won't tell the whole story, but I found out after doing this roof for her that I was working for a predatory contractor. I was a sub. I didn't realize it. This contractor absolutely ripped off this elderly lady. She was in her 80s. Her husband was a Marine, so we had a lot of good conversations. And it just bothered me. And I called my wife that day and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I quit that job and I put every single penny that I had into a full-page Yellow Page ad. And that was 2005. That was the first year I did $1 million in revenue. Over the course of the next 15 years, with the help of a lot of great people, some innovative technology, good strong branding and marketing, and most importantly, good culture. We grew that Milwaukee business to annual revenue of about 40 million, and we're slowly but surely ridding the Milwaukee community of my vision statement, which is to rid the world of unscrupulous contractors, right?
That deserves a round of applause, by the way. That's when we really connected, but continue.
There's so many bad contractors out there. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of bad ones too, but yeah, so that was my mission, to rid the world of unscrupulous contractors. And then just like you were saying earlier, I was getting pinged, I mean, every single day by these buy-side brokers that wanted me to sell my business. And I had no intention of selling Infinity at all. I didn't want some financial engineer to come in and tell me what I should be charging my customers, how I should be treating my people, or in any way adversely affect my culture. So I basically turned them all down. And then a guy that I know in the industry named Paul Collins, Overhead Solutions is a company in Green Bay. He ran a great roofing company. And he's just a salt of the earth guy. And he calls me and says, "Hey, Josh, I talked to this North Branch Capital folks out of Chicago. They're just fantastic. You got to get on the phone with them. I want to partner with them, but we need some more folks to join." And I said, "All right, Paul, I'll get on the phone." And I got on the phone, North Branch Capital, and they're incredibly, they're humble people. They were super down to earth. I really liked what they had done. They performed really well in the past. They put a nice LOI on my desk for a bunch of money, but I wasn't inclined to take it. And then I talked to my wife, who's much smarter than I am. My wife says, "Josh, this isn't about money. This is about your vision statement of ridding the world of unscrupulous contractors. And it should only come down to one question. Do you have a higher probability of doing that with or without North Branch?" And of course, I couldn't do it on my own. So I partnered with North Branch Capital September 8th, 2021, with the idea of what we had taking what we've done so well in Milwaukee and kind of promulgating that, through organic growth across the rest of the country, and also through partnering with other like-minded business folks. And we put a 5-year goal together of about 120 million in revenue, a strong EBITDA, and partnering with a small handful of companies. I'm happy to say we hit that goal, not in 5 years, but like 8 months. So we slowly outgrew, or quickly outgrew, I should say, North Branch Capital. And then we had to go out to market to find a little bit larger private equity partner that could help us support our growth. And so, yeah, that's kind of, the story of where I came from, what we're doing, and where we're at right now.
Yeah. So the name of your group, can you share that with us?
Yeah, it's called Infinity Home Services, IHS.
IHS for short. And Josh, to fill in the gap for folks who are new to this, LOI is letter of intent to acquire Josh's business. And just so everyone is clear on that. And Josh, when you and I met, we met at the Owens Corning Platinum Conference. And I remember you were very skeptical of me because you had said one thing. I'm going to take us off course from my questions I was going to hit today. But can you repeat that quote that you shared with me about why you had never gone to any conference? You built a $40 million a year business. You never went to any events or anything. What was that quote? You said you had a poster in your office.
Yeah, the quote is, "Work hard in silence and let your success be the noise."
Work hard in silence and let your success be the noise. I love that. So you didn't know anything about me. I didn't know anything about you. When you and I had lunch, I was like, private equity people, I just kind of had my guard up. You had your guard up. You shared your mission and your vision of ridding the world of unscrupulous contractors. And the next time we talked, I remembered it word for word. And I was like, that's a mission that I can get behind. You had actually acquired a client of mine who's incredibly, incredibly happy with the entire process. I'm actually meeting tomorrow to talk about other ways to be able to support. And there was just a lot of synergy, which is why we're here today. Is my people know that I'm very, very, very protective of who I bring into our world. So I appreciate you being here. So I'm gonna drill you with some questions, Josh, and you can go as shallow or as deep as you want. But I want to start with the PE landscape and roofing. Why now? Why is this PE? First, I think we should take a step back and not assume that everyone understands PE. PE is private equity, so private money coming into roofing. Now, why is this all coming into roofing right now?
Best guesstimate, believe it or not, there's like $11 trillion in private equity right now, which are alternative investments. About 3 trillion of that, trillion with a T, excuse me, is considered dry powder, which is basically, money sitting on the sidelines that hasn't been deployed yet. Private equity space, they love the home services space, and they got into it quite a few years ago. I think it started with commercial landscaping, it was based on waterproofing. But as of late, a lot of PE firms have had success in the HVAC plumbing space. And so the next logical place to jump would be, on the roof. And, roofing is a highly fragmented market. I think it's estimated about 50,000 active roofing contractors. So in a highly fragmented market, private equity loves consolidation, especially in markets where manufacturing and distribution is consolidated already. Because typically what happens is that when you get a consolidation like manufacturing distribution, they're going to have a little bit more controls, or a lot more controls on pricing and on product allocation, things like that. So it basically the space is really just ripe pickings for PE. So
Yeah.
that's why they're in it now.
Yeah. And with the economy as unstable as it is, this is a really great place to dump money into an essential service that every roof in the I mean, we'll talk the US market. This includes Canada. This includes, I'd say, everywhere. There's a roof. It's going to need to get done at some point. So now with this, when you and I met, I know that there's different camps. When I titled this episode Slime or Saint, there's folks that are interested in this and want for one reason, which is money and growth. And it's just all I care about is dollars and cents. And then there's a different angle that, like you shared, is like a truly portfolio of companies aligned around a strategy, as in your words, to rid the world of unscrupulous contractors. So can you paint the picture? And I don't want to put words in your mouth. So if you don't agree with it, you don't have to speak to that. But the good versus evil, so to speak, in the PE moves into our space. Like, how would you define like a more ethically driven, ethically sound PE firm versus one on the other end of the spectrum?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use good versus evil. I'd probably use ethical versus unethical. I mean, look, in any business that's for profit, there are going to be certain people out there who just don't act in a good fashion, I guess I would say. But private equity businesses, are in business to make money, make no doubt, mistake about it. And how they do that is they raise capital from wealthy individuals and institutional investors, and they promise a healthy return. They promise a return better than what you're going to get in the public markets. And there's ways to make money, as we all know. And so if I break it down into ethical and maybe unethical in some capacity, I would say that the unethical ones really going to try to boost returns by cutting all the bad things you hear about private equity: cutting salaries, cutting workforce, reducing innovation, reducing investment, long-term investments, which are going to create a very nice short-term bump in EBITDA or profit, if you will. But that's going to be detrimental to the long-term success of the organization. Some companies will over leverage businesses or apply too much debt, which basically means, when they buy businesses, they don't pay cash for them. Most of them, they get a loan out. The percentage of the loan to what cash they put in the business is your leverage, roughly. Not so many words, but if you over leverage your business or you put too much debt on a business and your cash flow can't pay the debt, then you tank the business. And that's exactly what happened to Toys R Us. So you had a very good brand, very good business, and it got tanked because there was too much debt on the business. Going down the unscrupulous path, I would say that there's also a tactic in private equity called retrading, which in the roofing space, it's called bait and switch. I'm sure everybody knows it. It's like you sell a job a little less than you should have, and not the good companies, the bad ones, and then they slap the homeowner with a bunch of change orders, or they swap out products without the homeowner knowing. That's really terrible, business ethics. But the private equity world does it too. They do it in the term of retrading. And basically what that is they send out a bunch of LOIs to companies and without doing any real work, and they just LOI to LOI, and they start doing diligence on these companies. They get them all fat and happy. They get these contractors thinking they're going to sell their business for millions of dollars. And then right at the very end, they go, there's this little thing I didn't like about your business, so I need to make a last minute price adjustment. And that happens. You got 100,000 or 150,000 in lawyer fees. You're getting ready to get this big check. And it happens, more often than it should, in my opinion. What else can I say? Maybe just not being truthful in messaging. I've heard some private equity firms, some chatter out there, like a 1 million EBITDA business that's going to be a platform. I mean, that's not true. I've seen Facebook ads buy your business for $100 million. It's like, come on,
yeah.
So what's happening in our space is really what we're witnessing is a roll-up or a buy and build strategy. So it's a strategy that involves acquiring a bunch of smaller roofing companies, merging them under a larger umbrella, typically a platform, 20, 30, $40 million business that has a good leadership team, maybe good technology, some strong things, and in the realm of private equity, there's a thing called, that's a concept called multiple arbitrage, which I don't want to get too deep. But it essentially means that the combined value of the entities is greater than the sum of the individual values. So an unscrupulous private equity company will come in and buy a bunch of random businesses, and pay them a certain value, park them underneath this one umbrella, and then sell out that umbrella for a higher value than combined, kind of like a mortgage-backed security, something like that, so yeah, that happens. But from an ethical standpoint, there's a lot of good private equity companies out there. They're going to be transparent with their end goals. They're going to tell you exactly what they're looking for and what their goals are. They're going to have a focused long-term. They're going to be focused on long-term value creation rather than short-term gain. They're going to have a deliberate, hyper-focused strategy. If the private equity firm is asking you what the strategy is, unless you're the platform, I mean, that's probably an issue. I would say, going on the ethical line again, is just having a history of creating long-term value, not just for their shareholders, but for the businesses that they've been a part of, and not just when they held the business. So you got to think about that. Like, you can, my friend likes to say, squeeze water out of a rock, right? A private equity company could squeeze as much profitability out of that and then throw that rock off a cliff to the next PE firm. And you just did not set that company up well. Yeah. And that's maybe a personal plug. That's why I love our firms, Light Bay Capital and Freeman Spogli. I mean, Freeman Spogli has touched brands, been invested in brands that they're household names. I mean, Mattress Firm, Floor & Decor, Batteries Plus, Popeye's Chicken, Advanced Auto Parts, names that we all know. These businesses did extremely well under their tutelage, but also long after they left. And so that's kind of what you look for in a private equity, if you care about the long-term value of your business, or long-term, where your business will be long-term.
Gotcha. And that's, you touched on something that I'd love to go deeper, is what these private equity firms are looking for. So if you were to describe like an ideal company, and I want to get at the end specific to what you're looking for, but in general, what are private equity companies looking for when it comes to acquiring a business?
Yeah, it's a good question, Adam. I'd really say it really depends on the firm. There's a lot of different private equity firms that have different goals, but I mean, the better firms, I would say, all the firms really are going to be looking for strong cash flow. They're going to be looking for good leaders, leaders that have technical competency, that have good leadership skills, that have a long-term sustained growth in both revenue and EBITDA, which EBITDA is basically a proxy for cash flow or net profit, roughly. So, can
you explain EBITDA to those who are unfamiliar?
It's interest before earnings, tax, depreciation, and amortization. It's basically net profit at the end of the day, adding back some interest payments that you'd have on lines of credit and depreciation on assets that you have, and a few things like that. So that's roughly what it is. And then there's a lot. It gets very nuanced. There's things called add backs, which are non-reoccurring expenses that you can get credit for. So there's a whole lot of nuance there, but it's roughly a proxy for profitability.
Gotcha. And there's generally, and that's probably not a fair statement. I've talked to a few folks in the PE space who are doing similar things as IHS with very different search criteria, very, very different search criteria. And most of them are looking for in EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, and amortization, of a certain dollar amount of $1 million minimum. And I'm sure there are people that are willing to acquire companies for less, but would you say that that's kind of the starting threshold for a financially healthy, established business that would be in a good position to sell?
I would say that's probably somewhere in that ballpark. I think is where you're going to start creating interest. I mean, let's face it. For the roofers on the call, you can run a $5 million top line revenue business with $1 million EBITDA with 3 or 4 people in our business. And if you think that business is worth $6 or $7 million, that's probably going to be a tough cookie to crack for a lot of folks, because the liability, the risk that private equity firm would have, or the platform business would have on if you leave, you basically, everything goes away. So yeah.
And realistically, from what I've been hearing, general ballpark range is about 4 to 6 times EBITDA. Again, variable by a PE firm. We've seen some historically. I know there's been a few that were like way higher valuations, but for the everyday folks, because this financial jargon is overwhelming. I actually talked with a client of mine who said, I just got an offer, and he told me the number. And I was like, that sounds like you're grossly overvalued. And when you'd share with me that strategy of the like bait and switch, like here's this amount, and then we may find these things. But I said, hey, what's your EBITDA? And he said, what's EBITDA? And again, this financial stuff it can be overwhelming. It's new uncharted territory for many people. And we're looking at 4 to 6 times earning. Let's just say a business that's doing $1 million a year in EBITDA, simple terms, net profit. They're looking at 4 to 6 million to sell for. And I would be shocked if they got the higher amounts, because on a smaller business, your multiple is going to be a little lower. Is that a safe overgeneralization, just to scratch the itch of people who are curious about this stuff?
I would say yes, that is a very safe overgeneralization. If you're making 2-3 million in EBITDA, you'll probably you're higher than 6. But there's any good private equity company is going to have an investment thesis. They're going to have a scorecard. So we look at things like how good is their management team? How likely are they to grow? What is their MSA? What market are they in? Things like that. How good is their second in command, their third in command, fourth in command? How well will they synergize with the platform? Will they be good partners? Because we look for good partners. So there's a lot of criteria that go in that range where you would think about what you'd make, and also stability, long-term stability. If you see a company going from, and again, this ranges depending on the type of end consumer. So if you're an insurance pay business versus a retail business, commercial, it's different. But most companies like historical, steady historical growth for their investors, right? They don't want to see
that makes
this,
sense. Your best year followed by your worst year.
Radicarpe, like that's scary, because it's like, did you buy it at the trough? Did you buy it at the top? Who knows? So that creates a difficult scenario when you're an investment committee to figure out what to value a business at. Yeah. So that creates some a little bit of difficulty there, but.
Absolutely. And since we can't overgeneralize, what I've done beneath this video or this podcast episode, there's a link. If you're interested in getting a valuation of your business, and if you're interested to sell and you want to be connected with some good folks, I've got some good folks that I can happily pass along an intro. So fill out the form below. It will ask, so be prepared for some real questions, because we need to know some information. And the reason that I say that, I'll be just connecting folks that, like, I know what IHS is looking for, which we'll touch on. And I'm not going to say, hey, you should get a valuation from IHS if you're in the complete opposite spectrum. And there's other folks that are also good people looking for the opposite things, because portfolios are in different, maybe have different strategies. So if you're interested, you can fill out the form below. I'll be happy to connect you guys and then let you, 1, determine if it's a good fit, 2, get a realistic valuation based on your infrastructure, your sales, and at the end of the day, everyone needs to be happy. So there's some info below. But Josh, moving on, what if you were to sit there as a consultant to a roofing company, like if you were to give yourself advice before this happened, I want you to be the advisor and say, what should you look for in a PE firm if you're considering selling?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I had to consult myself back in the day to figure this out, maybe almost 2 years ago now. But look, I would specifically ask with high specificity, how is a PE firm or the platform company associated going to help your business, your customers, your team? What do they have in place currently? Do they have technology? Do they have supply chain deals? Do they have learning and development programs? All these things. Ask specific questions. Not money. Money is money, right? Like you'll get the valuation you need. You need to ask the questions that what's going to happen to your company. So do they have a hyper-focused strategy? And does that strategy line up with your long-term goals? Like are they going in the same direction you're going? Yeah. Specifically about PE, Adam, I would say, do they have committed capital? Are they a cash buyer? We all know, kind of the horror story of RBI. It's don't do seller financing. There's small firms out there that are saying, hey, we'll buy you, but you got to finance it back. Don't do seller financing. There's no need to in our space right now. So find a cash buyer, find a cash-free, debt-free deal is kind of what the typical structure in this space is. Yeah. I would also ask if they have a real corporate team, and is there experience in the industry? I mean, is the company run by a bunch of Harvard graduates, which is obviously nothing wrong with having gone to Harvard, but these
But we're
typically aren't,
roofers.
yeah, they're not entrepreneurs. They're certainly not roofers. They're not like you and I, would be. And I do strongly believe, and so does my private equity firm. I mean, I'm a roofer through and through. I did not go to college, and I'm helming a $250 million business right now. But they believe that there's insight that could be had in the industry, or that should be had, that I know roughly what I'm doing to make sure that our brand presidents or our GMs, our companies that come on, really get a lot of value from what we're providing.
Yeah. And Josh, when you and I started talking, I remember we went out to lunch at Platinum. There was guards up on both ends. I remember leaving this and like, just if you want to get a taste of who I am, go watch some of my videos. You'll know right away whether you love me or you hate me. And we ended up sitting out by the little fire ring there in Scottsdale, chatting, and it was one of the highlights of the trip is just connecting with people that are doing good work, because I'd left the business from being burned. I had a bad taste in my mouth. I thought all roofers were con artists, because I went through stories for another day, just all the same stuff we've all gone through, right? And when we connected, I just felt this synergy there. And this is still newer for me, this world that you're in. And I learned a lot from our conversation. I learned a lot from you. I learned a lot from talking to companies that you've acquired. Some are, or one of them was a client of mine, still is, really good people. And as I begin hearing from other roofers, one of the questions they have, the same one I had, is like, how are these deals structured? What's the benefit to me as the contractor? And then we're not going to go too deep, because I know it's super personal per PE firm, per strategy, but high level, the questions that I get are, if they buy my business, am I out or am I still running it? If they buy my business, how much are they buying? And the third one is the biggest one. Do I still have control? Because that is the number one thing that people say. I'm not going to be listening to some corporate dude in a suit who's going to tell me to do this, this, and this. So those are like the three big things. Like, how much do you buy? What's the big benefit to me? And then if they are retained in the business, what does that relationship look like?
Those are all good questions. So I guess, in reverse order, you do lose control. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Private equity, when they invest a big amount of money, when they write you a big check, you no longer have control of your asset. You sold it, essentially. Deals are structured cash-free, debt-free. Most deals you're going to see the company buys, unless you're a platform, you're a big business and they're buying a piece of your business. Typically, they buy 100% of the business. And then every PE firm varies. So there's some firms that like to buy 100% and then just keep you on as like a GM and pay you to be a GM and share profits, but they own all the equity, you get none. There's other firms like IHS, we won't buy companies 100%. Let me rephrase that. We buy 100%, but a portion of that proceeds goes back into IHS. So all the 11 companies we partner with all own IHS. They all own Class A shares. They own the same stock that I do. And so we're generally business partners across the platform. So this lends to, like, it is incredibly important that you know who you're getting in bed with, because when you partner with a private equity firm, ostensibly you do lose control. It's what's important that you believe in the people that are running the business from the corporate team, and you believe in the strategy they have. And that's why I would just touching back on, who to partner with, is like, talk to their CEO. Like, if you want to call me, I'll get on a call with you. Talk to their whole C-suite team. Talk to the other brand owners. We have 11 companies in our platform right now. Some joined almost 18 months ago. Some joined 2 weeks ago. You can get a peek behind the curtains. Talk to the brand president. Say, hey, how's your team doing now? Did they really bring value to the long term, to your business? Was it disruptive at all? Did they fire your people? You should not only talk to the person trying to buy your business, but everybody involved in that. And if they don't open that level of information to you, I would not even come close to thinking about partnering with them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then in terms of autonomy, if the owner is now selling the business, can you share with me they're now an employee of the business should they wish to stay on board? Is that correct?
Yeah. So the most value you're going to get from your business is if you stay on long term, without a doubt. If you sell, here's the keys and you're done, you'll get companies to buy you, but there's just an inherent risk with that, because our businesses they're people businesses. These are human capital businesses. And look, I've got folks that work for me for over 20 years. And like, if I leave, you know, what's the relationship like with the next person who comes in? It's, you just don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of risk if you're doing that. So, I forgot the question. I mean, I got
No,
distracted.
that's all good. So if someone is selling their business, they should know that they will likely, for this proper deal structure, for the highest valuation, stay on board. They'll be an employee. They'll receive a salary. Of course, there's benefits in
Yes.
perks to add more, but you're exchanging, and please correct me if I'm wrong. They're basically saying, hey, I'm going to take some chips off the table, rake in a whole bunch of money, and then I'm going to stay on board with the right strategy with people who I align with to be able to continue working with them as partners. I'm going to take a percentage of my sale, reinvest it into the entire strategy fund, knowing that my long game is I've taken chips off now. I'm making enough money to hopefully, unless you're like living this crazy lavish lifestyle, sustain the lifestyle that you're living.
Yep.
Invest all this large sum, have it in your bank if you want cash. And then in the long game, as the fund or strategy continues to grow, there's some liquidity events that you can cash out even bigger later. So you get a big win now, sustain the life, huge win on the upside in the future. Am I understanding that appropriately, or did I just fictionalize this whole process?
You said it very well. What I would say is level of centralization. This is why you got to ask very, very pointed questions. The level of centralization that platinum company wants to do versus the level of autonomy. That's really, really important. Like, what are you going to centralize? Are you going to centralize? Yeah. Is it going to be national purchasing? You know, is it going to be lead gen? Is that going to be centralized? What level of autonomy at the brand level are you going to give your folks? And I can tell you, for us at IHS, talk to our folks. Like they run good businesses. They're good entrepreneurs. That's why we partner with them in the first place. So why would we ever go in there? Again, I'm a roofer. Why would I ever go in there and tell them, hey, you now have to do the, X, Y, and Z, this totally antithetical to growing a strong business, or just because I say that that's how it has to be. Yeah. I don't come from corporate America. I grew a $50 million location, single location. So I understand the different epochs, the evolutions of a residential roofing business. I know what it takes to be a $10 million company. I know what it takes to be a 40. Our goal as a corporate team is to have centralized resources to help our partners grow their businesses more successfully and provide support, not to tell them what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
That's not the same for me. That's not the same for every private equity company. Other ones are going to rebrand your name. They're going to have a specific way, and then they want the business to be operated, and then you have to kind of get in lockstep with that. And they should be totally transparent with that up front. But I can say, some aren't. Yeah.
And there's so many stories, both positive and on the other side, through surprises after the process, right? So yeah. This would be a great time for you to share with us, like what are the biggest, well, two-part question, and I'll repeat it if you get down the rabbit hole, don't you worry. What is IHS looking for? And when you share with me what IHS provides to the brands that are working with you, I was like, I remember I turned to you, I'm like, you guys looking for a training company? So go ahead and lay it out there. Just share with us what you're looking for and in some of what you'd say is the biggest benefits behind your strategy.
I would just start by saying we're looking for great people. We're looking for great people with strong cultures. So we're looking for people that want to stay involved. That's how our IHS is maybe a little bit different than a lot of platforms. We're not looking to buy your company out, and you set sailing, unless you have a really strong second person in command who's been with you a long time.
Yeah.
Look, we want people who care about their customers. They want to jump on our vision statement, which is to rid the world of unscrupulous contractors. They want to take their business from wherever they are now, whether it be 10 million, 15 million, and grow that business to $50 million. That's who we want to partner. We want to partner with just good, genuine, salt of the earth, guys and gals like that. That's who we want to partner with. And we do have a focused strategy. It's hyper focused on, residential retail roofing, limited exposure to storms and new construction. We like that space. It's a space that we've been in since the creation of our business, and all of our businesses kind of fall lockstep there. So to the extent you fit that criteria, and you want to jump on the train of ridding the world of these unscrupulous contractors, we'd love to hop on a call and talk with you. And the cool thing about it is that, you sign an NDA and so we won't share information. You go back and forth, you learn a little bit, you learn what your business is worth today. and you take it for what it is. If it's something that's interesting to you, we maybe go down that, you said rabbit hole a couple of times, we go down a little deeper. If not, hey, at least you learn a little something about the space, and now you're a little more educated after the fact.
Yeah.
If I give you a 30-second pitch on why I think IHS is the best, because I do, and I'm not biased. Well, maybe I'm a little biased.
You should be biased.
For us, I mean, we've got, you get access to, some unbelievable resources. We have a fully functional HR department, which is always a pain point for a lot of us entrepreneurs, not sure whether it's compliance or recruiting, talent management, all that stuff. Our CHRO, which is Chief Human Resources Officer, was a former global officer for Patron Liquor, believe it or not. 4,500 employees she managed.
Wow.
She's incredibly sharp, and she would take over and basically essentially help with all your recruiting efforts and making sure that you had the team you needed to sustain the growth. We have a chief marketing officer, which you'd have access to. She was on the leadership team of over $1 billion home services business. She just came over to us because she wasn't super excited about the culture in her last operation. You get the upside. This is a really important thing. We don't buy companies out 100%, or should I say, we don't let companies sell 100%. People have to reinvest back into IHS because we want partners. I don't want people just selling their businesses. And getting that partnership, you get the upside equity of the growth of our platform long term. We're one of the fastest growing, residential roofing companies in the country right now. When you partner with us, you're an equity holder and you get the upside equity. So it's a really nice piece. And I would say also from a human capital side, one thing that was always frustrating me over the years, and maybe it is part of my saying, work hard in silence, let the success be the noise, but a lot of good business owners, they're always at the peak. When you hit 10 million, it's the first time at 10 million. When you hit 20, it was your first time at 20. And I like to akin it to, you're helming a ship in the Arctic, and there's icebergs out there, and you got a dim light. You got this machine that's cranking out cash, you're making money, things are going well, but you can't go very fast because you just don't know what's out there. And partnering with, us, we brighten that light. Like I know what the operational challenges are of a $40 million business. I know what they are. I've been there. I've been in that seat before. So it's really neat that you can reach across the country, across the aisle, talk to other brand presidents who have been in your shoes before, and just get advice. Like, hey, I'm struggling with this employee. I'm struggling with marketing. I'm struggling with this. It's not all coming from corporate. It's coming from collaboration, which I think is just awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Josh, thank you for all of that. And for anyone listening, if you're wondering, what is the value of my business? Am I in a position to sell, and who would be a good partner? Fill out the form below. I'll ask you some questions. Expect to spend a few moments on there. And if you're a good fit to chat with Josh, we'll set up an intro. If you're a good fit for someone else, I've got some good people I can introduce you to. And I want everyone just to explore, learn. And you'll either say, hey, this is a great fit and I should do something. Or on the other side, you're going to say, hey, selling's not for me. That's also good. And then the other option is maybe you say, hey, now's not the right time, but you're going to know exactly what you need to do to build your business to be ready to grow. If you're like, hey, I really love this group, these guys were great, but I don't meet this criteria, but maybe in a year you would. And I think it's really important, if it's even on your mind, to know what you're after, to have a clear vision of what needs to happen for that bigger exit, or exit phase one, right? Because I know that folks are generally still involved. So again, that form's below. Josh, thank you for joining me on, you said your first podcast.
Yeah, first podcast.
You had me fooled. I loved it. I'm like, dude, it's just a conversation that happens to be recorded. And yeah. I love it. I really appreciate you being here. And I'm just really grateful that we met. I'm excited to see good people around you. I'm excited to see you so dedicated to helping rebuild the reputation of roofers. And what I didn't share with you at the beginning, and since we've talked, is when you told me that your vision was to rid the world of unscrupulous contractors, it helped me start to think bigger. And when I say, I believe I've seen this on my videos, and my mission statement is to help roofers smash their income goal and give every customer an amazing experience. And I went back and I started sharpening, like, well, what's my why? And my why has been inspired by what you shared with me, which is to create a joyous experience in the home for everybody. That's my real vision. I want homeowners to have an experience in the home when they're going through a roof replacement, which is usually not a fun and exciting process, whether it's retail or storm, and make it joyous, where they say that person in the home was respectful, they liked me, the company did a great job. And to be able to create that experience in the home was like the fuel that I was like the aha moment. So I just want to say thank you for giving me that, like that inspiration to tap deeper into my why, because I've been like even more invigorated than ever. I'm refilming my entire training program. I'm injecting more of this stuff. I'm refining things. So you kind of relit my fire through that thinking bigger. So I didn't share that with you before, but thanks a bunch, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. I love it. It was awesome.
Yeah. Josh, any closing comments for anybody? Anything you want to say at all?
No, I appreciate you having me on, Adam. I think, our industry is evolving, and it's evolving extremely rapidly. I think this is a really cool time for roofing companies. Never before have you got an opportunity to sell your business and make some money and really help your team. So I think hopefully this is somewhat informative. And it's a big decision. I mean, it's a huge decision to do it.
Yeah.
And so certainly not something you want to take lightly, and talk to a few folks and again, peek behind the curtains and make sure you know what you're getting into, because it's not just you guys. You know, and I know that when we built these businesses over the years, it's not just yourself, it's your entire team. And you just don't want to let your team, you don't want to throw them to the wolves and some, for money. Because I don't think anybody really wants to do that. So.
No, they don't. I have one surprise question for you that wasn't on the list that I shared with you before. If you were to give yourself advice when you were at $5 million to say, if you do this, this is the most important thing to go from 5 million to 40 or 50 million, what advice would you have given yourself?
Yeah, read more. Yeah, read more. I read a lot now. A lot of John Maxwell, he's 5 Levels of Leadership, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Jim Collins wrote a book called The Flywheel, The Great Game of Business. There's nothing I could have done at 5 million to the trajectory that I was on was because I got up every morning at 4:30. I went into the office, I solved problems, I took care of people, I took care of my customers, like a lot of guys are doing out there these days. And it's this giant mechanical flywheel that you just push every day. And some days you push a little harder than other days and you get a little bit more momentum. But if you do the right thing every day, and you make little small wins every day, and you continue to improve yourself, both personally and professionally, you're going to be a winner. You're going to go out there, you're going to get stuff done, and you're going to be in a position to sell your business for a whole lot of money and help a lot of people out.
That's beautiful. I got nothing to add other than read more books. I love it. Keep it up, man.
Well, awesome,
Josh,
man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again.
Okay, take care.